This is the Vision 79 podcast, where my friend Sander and myself, Mason, discuss recent developments in our business and our personal growth. The name Vision 79 comes from our respective racing numbers. Sander's is 40, mine is 39. And we have a shared vision for success in our businesses and personal life. Many successful people started small, just like us, but very few of them documented their process. We intend to be the first to document our journey from start to finish. We like to start each episode with a brief recap of the business work that we've done that week, so that when we look back on these podcasts, we have a waypoint as to where we are in our lives. This week was a little bit lighter on our developing business side, but I still think we got a lot done. Mm-hmm. We finished and submitted our sales and use tax form for Kahuna Cravings. We got a letter in the mail. They mail letters to us, and we got a letter mailed to us dated one day before we paid our taxes. But they are like, why they had to guess, because they were like, you haven't submitted us any documents, so we're going to guess how much you owe us, and it's a lot. So I went to go to the Department of Revenue on Friday. They were closed. They said that they were, it was for 4th of July, but the 4th was on Thursday, so I guess they just decided to close the next day off. Yeah. So we've got to follow up on that. But I think everything should be fine there. I don't foresee a huge issue. I've been working on some more informational training material. Oh, yeah. Not just for employee training, but for customer information as well. I think it'd be cool if we made some kind of resource available to both of them to inform them about our products, so they can be informed consumers. You've been working a lot of the bulk recording stuff for our podcasts. Yes. Cranking out a ton of content in preparation for when we do quit our jobs and commit to this endeavor. We're not going to have a bunch of time to record and edit, so we're going to pre-stack now. Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
There's 37 pieces of content now pre-stacked with posts, all done, ready to rock and roll with captions, everything.
And we're recording more today.
Yeah, recording 40 more today.
Yeah. So we'll have it's going to be like 15, 20 weeks of stuff.
It'll be 13
weeks of stuff.
Yeah.
And if it takes more than 13 weeks to get this job done, I am going to start sweating.
Yeah. I'm going to start sweating at like 10.
Just financially. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the last piece of business update that I have is I've been getting a lot of insight from boots on the ground workers in industry, which is really important. I think this is important for any business that we get into. Speak to the customers, right? And speak to the employees, because when speaking with the employers, they have a very different perspective. I've seen that firsthand in the business that we're getting into now. But speaking to the employees really highlights a lot of the issues in the business that they may be afraid to tell employers, or employers aren't willing to admit to themselves. You know, it's easy to overlook problems when you're in that position and you have bigger fish to fry, but employee satisfaction is hugely important, I think, to the success of a business.
Oh, yeah.
And do you have any business updates to tack onto that?
The bulk recording content
is everything.
The majority.
Yep.
Large majority of my week.
Right.
Had to redo those 335i photos. Mm-hmm. So that took a little bit of time, not a ton. Did that July 4th. And happy 4th, everybody.
Quick plug there. Sander and I are selling our 335 BMW. It's a 2009. We're going to have it listed on Cars and Bids, do a live auction, no reserve. We're going to post it on every social media platform that we can, including this Vision 79 stuff. It is a car. It's Vision 79. Our logos are the cars. So this counts as content. But also, all of the proceeds will go to us to support our business endeavors. We're quitting our jobs to make this happen. And this is one of the ways that we're trying to make money to do that.
Yeah, very clean single owner car. Actually bought it in Germany and did the driver's experience, and then brought it over here to the States and then kept it that entire time. All service records included. If any of you are interested, it will be live on Cars and Bids in the coming weeks.
Sander did
excellent example, 110,000 miles.
Sander did a really great job with all the promotional material for it. So as we post things, I have this idea, and it's really easy for me to sign Sander up for things, but I think it'd be great if you contact us with a car that you want auctioned. Yeah. We'll develop the listing for you. Professional photos, professional angles, professional write-ups, digitized documents, everything. We'll go through the listing process, and then we'll take a cut of the proceeds from the auction. I think that's a really fun business idea because our listing blows everyone else's out of the water on Cars and Bids. It's otherworldly.
You can view the video on YouTube at Sander Sorok's YouTube. Mm-hmm. You can check that out. And if you're interested in auctioning your own car, feel free to reach out.
I think it'd be great if we posted your video or clips of it on our TikTok.
Oh yeah,
I think we should.
yeah.
When the
100%.
listing goes live, I think we should with a link to the Cars and Bids thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then additionally, I've been working on that mini outside.
Yep.
That took quite a while. The previous person who serviced it did a poor job, to say the least. So that'll bring a little bit of extra cash to help us with this endeavor as well. So happy about that. And yeah, gonna rock and roll into next week too. Excited.
I've got a bunch of life updates.
Oh yeah,
just for where I'm at in life. I bought a desk.
Oh, you did buy it.
I built it, which is spectacular.
All on your own. A whole mechanical engineer built a desk all on his own.
I did. It's all the Lego training. But it's actually really important for me because I find myself very frequently with like 20 or 30 minute like snippets of time. And I don't have a good place to work right now. Like the best I can do is set my laptop up on the kitchen counter and stand and work. But if I'm in the middle of meal prepping, I'm not going to do that. So I'm spending those 20 minutes like cleaning or stretching or something that it's productive, but it's not as productive as I want it to be.
Yeah.
But this is a sitting standing desk. So now I have it. The laptop's always open. It's always charging. It's always available. And when I have a free minute, I'm getting so much more done just by sitting down. Today, while I was meal prepping, I meal prepped before I came over here a little bit. Chili's on the stove. I just got to get up to stir it once every 5 minutes. It sits there for 30, right? And I worked on my laptop during that, and I got actual work done. So I'm very happy with that purchase. It was a $400 desk, so it wasn't cheap.
Yeah, it's a sweet desk, though.
It's a sweet desk. And if I can work at home, I'm less likely to work at the bar and buy stuff. So I'm hoping that it pays itself back. I think I'll probably be saving $100 a month working at home instead of going to the bar. So that's 4 months it'll pay itself off at the worst. I got my concealed carry license, which is spectacular. They charge you $80 for the course where they teach you how to conceal carry, and then $120 for the license once you actually go and get your fingerprints done, license printed and stuff, which is crazy that it costs that much. But
yeah,
it's kind of like insurance, because if you do have to use your weapon and you have to go to court for it and stuff, this shows proficiency and that you're mature and responsible.
There's probably also an aspect of it that, there's a financial cap so that like, people can't just buy like a used gun for $50 and then, carry it around unsecure. Like there's probably like a cap in that sense so that like, if you go through this course, you're legit and you're not just trying to run under the radar.
Yeah.
Like there's a legitimacy aspect to the pricing, if that makes sense.
It used to be illegal to conceal carry without a license, but in Florida, it's illegal to open carry unless you're on your way to hunting or fishing or something, in which case it's acceptable. But generally speaking, like I can't open carry my firearm, right?
Right.
I am allowed to conceal carry it without a license. But I chose to get my license because if I ever have to use it, I want to show like, hey, I went through the training. I'm taking this seriously. I'm not,
Makes sense.
And I got a haircut.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I mentioned that isn't because I want compliments. It's because the guy that cuts my hair has been moving hair salons. And so I talked to him and I was like, dude, why are you moving so much? He's like, I just want to like cut at different places and like show people what I can do. I don't know. He's a free spirit. And I was like, that's interesting. And he was like, I can't remember how I cut your hair last time. Can you show me a picture? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, honestly, dude, even if you fuck it up, we'll just shave me bald and I'll be okay. And he was like, dude, if the worst that happens is like, there's no case scenario in which case your haircut is so bad that we have to go bald. Like you can take a chunk out of the side of your head and I can still style it somehow. You won't have to go bald. And I was like, that's an interesting advertisement idea. We should make you a TikTok. And then in your videos, you can promote like, hey, I can work with the worst of circumstances, right? So in the video, you'll be like, I'm going to go grab a spray bottle. And then I'll grab the shaver and like shave a stripe in my head. And then you'll come over and style it. And that's the TikTok. And he was like, dude, that's a great idea. I love that. That's so much fun. Like we should totally do that. And I was like, I might be down to do it. But if I'm not, maybe I can find a friend who if you can get the haircut for free or something.
I'm actually getting a haircut Monday.
That's perfect. But even in the hair shop, I started thinking about different ways to promote this guy. And the last point I have is I got a new belt.
Oh,
and
good.
That's not because I want compliments. It's because I have had a black belt for like 6 years, and I can't use it anymore. It's falling apart.
Yeah.
So
I had to glue my black belt back together like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
The buckle broke off because it's one of the flippable ones. You can be brown or black.
Yeah.
And so I have a different brown belt. So I just glued that one in place to be black. And that's what I sell with because I don't want to buy another one. It's like $40.
That's how bad my shoes are. My shoes right now are fucked. The soles are worn completely through. They start doing the thing where the bottoms flip off the main part. I had to glue it back on. But I'm unyielding in buying new shoes because these are the shoes. I fucking hate these shoes. I fucking hate them. And they're my office shoes because they're nice. Those are what I have to wear to work.
Yeah.
And so I will wear these shoes until I leave my job.
Mhm.
And I will not change pairs. I don't care if it wears all the way through and my socks are showing. I will never buy new shoes for my job. Because every day that I wear my shoes and I have to walk through the rain and my feet get wet, I go, God fucking damn it. That's more inspiration for me to work harder to get out of that fucking place. I had the same thought about the belt until I went to dinner with my girlfriend.
Pants fell off?
And my pants fell down. No, I went to dinner with Grace and I didn't have a belt that matched my shoes. And I was like, I kind of looked like a schlep. And then I was like, in our business dealings, I'll probably be dressing nice at some point. And I probably will buy nicer shoes down the line. I'm really stuck with these shoes in the office because it's a mental block, but it would be nice to have a new belt. But the new belts are like $40, right? And I had this idea, which was I'm going to go shopping on the 4th of July and shop the sales. So I got a brand new metal buckle, real genuine leather on both sides, black belt. It's a $75 belt. I got it from a store that was closing at the Mall Millennia for $20.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So I got a new belt. I'm really happy about that.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Congrats.
That's all my business and life updates. So now we can get into the actual meat of the podcast. I have 5 quotes. Most of them are kind of related, and there's a Formula One at the end.
Sounds good to me.
Do you have anything you want to say? Or I've got a Formula One thing to bring up if you're interested.
Let's go for it. I got 3 quotes today, so I can stagger them in.
The race this morning, Formula One was at Silverstone in Britain, and we saw it was probably the perfect Formula One race that could ever have been done.
Oh, really?
It was perfect. Yep. A race for the lead, changeable conditions. Cool. Everyone's on equal pace, right? And we saw what might be Lewis Hamilton's last ever win with Mercedes at his home track. At his home track.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
I bet the crowd was wild.
Dude, he started crying on the radio and stuff. And normally, I really hate Lewis Hamilton for how selfless he is and how he thanks the fans and thanks the team and thanks the factory and everything. It drives me fucking up the wall. I hate it. But I think I hate it because when he's dominant, it feels like it's easier. It comes easier to him. So why are you so grateful when this was like you won by 40 seconds, right? But he hasn't won in 3 years.
Yeah.
And he's come so close so many times since then. And he's just been suffering. Like Red Bull have bludgeoned the rest of the field and other teams have won. His teammate has won twice since him and he just hasn't been able to put it together. But he did. And in changeable conditions, rain and on and off, experience prevailed. He fucking nailed it. And he ended up winning. And Max was hunting him down at the end. Max ended up finishing like 1.7 seconds behind him or something.
Oh, gotcha.
Max started off really weak. The full stage, he was like miles off. He qualified 4th.
Really?
He was in 4th most of the race with like no pace, like 3 or 4 tenths a lap off of the field. And then he surged back in the last like 20 laps on a different set of tires and almost got it. But Lewis fucking crushed it. And it's a really big deal for him because it's the last one that he might win at Mercedes, and it was at his home track. And it's Mercedes' home track too.
Yeah,
they sure build the car there. But it was beautiful. So I just wanted to open the bracket and set the tone there for my last quote of the day, which will close that. Did you know that in storytelling, the best way to storytell is to open a topic and then not close it until the very end of the story.
Yeah.
And then you open the next topic and then that's the next one closed. So like in the very middle of the story or towards the peak of the story, you want a problem to come up and then solve it really quickly and then start solving the rest of the problems to close the rest of the story out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that with the thing.
What's the movie with Forrest Gump?
Forrest Gump.
Oh, is it actually called Forrest Gump?
Oh, Forrest Gump.
Gotcha. They do that. They do that when they start the movie, like sitting at the bus stop and he's like telling a story. And like you kind of lose track of the fact that they're still at the bus stop and then they wrap it up at the end with him, still at the bus stop.
That's exactly that.
Yeah.
And TV shows do this. What they'll do is they'll open a bracket and then they'll open another one really shortly after.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll open and close and open and close and open and close. And then they close they close the main bracket, but the very second one they leave open and that's your cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Or they'll open a bracket at the very end and that's the cliffhanger.
That's cool.
There are some romance novels. I think I heard this from a Chris Williamson podcast. There are some romance novels that have written on the front of the book, no cliffhanger, because they want to advertise to their audience like you will be satisfied if you buy this book because it's such a big deal in those types of communities. People hate the cliffhangers. I don't mind them, but yeah.
Very cool.
Enough of my ramblings.
I'm going to kick us off.
Go for it.
I'm actually going to kick us off with the third one that I have listed here. Alex Hormozi had a podcast not too long ago about how maybe you're just not good enough, right? Maybe it's not external factors that are holding you back. Maybe it's not, the location of your business or, the color of your skin or whatever. right? He lists a bunch of different examples in there. You guys can watch it. But so many people complain about stereotypes, like young people not being able to make sales in a sales environment, right? And so he goes through this whole story about this young kid who wanted to get into sales, and he had to prove himself, and he had to do all of this extra work that everyone else didn't have to do just because he was young. And he didn't go through that experience to say, oh, well, like, I'm being discriminated against because, I'm young and this is unfair, blah, blah, blah. He just pushed harder than anyone else and became the best salesman in the company, because you have to go above and beyond when you're in that situation. And I want to ask you, what's one time when you realized it wasn't external factors at play, but you just weren't putting in enough?
Every day at rowing through my entire career.
Fair.
One thing I love about racing as a sport compared to football and soccer, there's a lot of fortune and chance that has to do with those game style sports, right? If the ball was passed to me instead of Larry, if it wasn't raining, if I hadn't slipped, if I tied my shoe, there's a lot of ifs, right?
Yeah.
And in racing, it's were you faster or not?
Yeah.
It's binary. And if you fuck up during the race, I mean, we've all agreed you have these 6 minutes to make it work. And if you don't, it doesn't matter how fast you think you are, because you're not, you just didn't win. That's something that I love about the racing sport. I haven't had it happen to me ever, because I've never felt entitled to something that I didn't have. There was at one point where I felt that I was in my senior year. We had a brand new coach that year, and he was not acclimating well. He made me team captain, and I helped with that process. I knew a lot of the parents and a lot of the students, and so I tried to help bridge the gap.
Sure.
And towards the end of the season, I was in the second fastest boat, and I really loved the guys that I worked with in that boat. And towards the end of the year, he was like, hey, I'm going to switch you with one of the guys in the fastest boat. And I was like, I'm not faster than him. Don't do that. And he was like, well, no, but you get along with the guys really well, and I think that can boost morale, and sometimes that's what you need. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, he's 6 seconds faster than me through a race. I mean, that's a big margin, right? Like, fucking keep him there. I have a really great team in the second fastest boat. Just leave.
Yeah.
And that is more common in athletes than people close to athletes, I think. In my senior year of college, my high school rowing team tried to fire my high school rowing coach. And when he's sitting in the parent meetings and getting down to the bottom of it, what it really came down to was one of the parents who was on the board was upset that the coach had moved her kid out of one of the boats. And I had to sit down with her, and I was like, listen, you just need to understand that your kid isn't fast. Like, your kid isn't fast enough for this seat, period. I've seen him row. I see his numbers. They're right here. You can't lie. You cannot fight the data. He's just not fast enough. And that might upset you because you care about your kid, and I understand that. But you need to understand that this kid isn't going to learn a lesson if he's handed the seat. And I think that a lot of athletes especially really are understanding of the fact that if it's not fair, it isn't because of who you are. It's because of the work that you put in. Right.
I hear that.
Have you experienced it?
Yeah, for sure. I think I have a lot of really good examples from racing karts as well. But to put a different spin on it, I think that one I bumped into regularly was when I played music, when I played drums. There were times where, I'd go into a performance and not do as well as I wanted to, or not mesh with the rest of the band as well, and, just not play my best. And it could have been a factor of, oh, the crowd wasn't right, or, the sound balance wasn't right, or these aren't drums that I'm used to, or blah, 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 right? But ultimately was, did I really rehearse? Did I really prepare enough? Did I really practice enough? Did I do all my rudiments and syncopation exercises before I played this piece? Or, did I not do that? And especially when I played cello too, that was a really big factor, because it was really hard for me to practice cello because I had to transfer it back and forth from my mom's and dad's house between 3 and 4 times a week.
It's a big instrument.
Yeah. And it's a big instrument to do. And when you're taking an hour of public transportation a day, it's pretty rough.
Right.
So it was easy to say, oh, well, like, I just can't practice because I'm spending all this time transferring it. And then if I can't transfer it one day, then I lose 2 days, blah, blah, blah. But it ultimately was like, am I just not doing enough? Like, I might just not be practicing enough and not putting in enough effort. This might be a me problem, not a public transportation or a dual household problem, or, this piece is really hard and I don't know how to play it problem, right? It's a me problem.
Right.
And so that's definitely one time where I consistently saw that and learned that sometimes you just need to put in the effort. Sometimes you just need to grind, and sometimes you need to grind harder than other people do because maybe someone else is more talented than you at X given thing. And, they might have been playing cello for 3 years and you might have been playing for 5, but they're better than you because they put in more effort.
Yeah.
And you have to put in that level of effort and more.
Yeah. Interestingly, I learned part of that lesson from my dad, but not from him directly saying to me, like, hey, you need to put in more effort. He would ask me, like, why didn't you hit the numbers that you wanted to hit? And I think he was expecting me to say, like, oh, I was sick or I didn't eat right or like the wind was blowing the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Right? Wind is a big deal in rowing. But well, ultimately, like when I thought about it, I was like, I think I just didn't work hard enough. Like, I took a day off last week, or I'm like fucking around with my friends at practice, or we talking about like that kind of thing. And in my senior year, I buckled down. And I thought to myself, like, this is my last year. If I don't row in college, if I don't get accepted into a team for college, this is my last season. So I have to, every single stroke, you give 100% effort. Then you take a lot of fucking strokes, and there are many days where you don't feel like it. Yeah. But making yourself sit down and say, like, hey, at the end of the season, after 10 months of training, 6 days a week, 3 hours a day, and stretching and eating and sleeping right and fucking crushing it and building a bond with your teammates, you really train for 1 6-minute race at the end of the year. So it's fucking like the training to execution ratio is insanity. And do I want to finish that 6-minute race at the end of the year and think like, oh, well, I could have tried harder on this stroke. Right. And I thought about that a lot through my entire senior year in my high school.
Yeah. I had that with racing too, practicing. There wasn't really ever a time that I didn't want to practice. Mm-hmm. But there were times where I was definitely tired, really tired. And it's like, am I going to do an extra run? Am I going to review this video footage? Am I going to look at the data? Right. And doing all that stuff versus not doing that stuff is the difference between you getting first and second.
Yeah. What's great about racing is that you can go out there and just have fun with it. And like racing is what you put into it, right? So like if you obsess over it, you'll get fast. And if you don't, you'll be slow. But I think that people who are fast and people who are slow have the capacity to enjoy it the same.
Yes,
like,
for sure.
I think that any racing driver, if you're in a car or kart, you're going to have fun.
Right.
Probably less fun if you're on track with other people and you're not faster than them. But the act of being in the flow state is what's fun.
Yes. I would agree with that.
Which is great. There's not as much of that in rowing. A lot of it is just fucking shit. A lot of it just fucking sucks. This is similar to that. My first quote is a Hormozy quote, and it is, entrepreneurship is a test of will, not intellect. Meaning like just fucking put your nose down and do it. So like even if you don't feel like doing it, just do it. And you don't have to be smart to get it done. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be a straight white male. You don't have to be black. You don't have to be a woman. You don't have to be any type of demographic. You just have to be willing to put yourself out there and give 100% to every stroke.
Yeah, 100%. This goes back to my first point too, of like, maybe you're just not good enough. There's plenty of people who, fall into different categories of non-white straight male that grows up wealthy.
Right.
And, those people I feel like tend to complain about their situation. Not everyone, of course, but I think there's a higher percentage of people who fall out of that spectrum that complain about their situation than do something about it, Yeah. And I think we see that in how many people don't decide to pursue something greater or build a business or find a second source of income or, even like simple shit like, get the car of their dreams or get a project car or, figure out finances to be able to travel, whatever. Right. There's plenty of people who don't figure out those things and would be more satisfied complaining about it.
I think there are even people who aren't happy where they are, don't complain about it, work to achieve their goals and don't achieve their goals. And they're still happier than the people who complain about it.
Yeah.
Because they're making progress towards it.
And I think that the regret of not taking a shot is way worse than the accepting the failure of after you took the shot, if you fail.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's much more painful to regret than it is to fail.
Yeah. I just took 5 days off, 6 days off work. I didn't work Tuesday. I just worked Monday last week. So it would be 6 days that I took off of work. And that's like, generally speaking, apart from Christmas, like the longest break that a person is going to get working a 9 to 5. And it was so unsatisfying. I don't feel recharged. I don't feel reinvigorated. I don't feel ready to get back into the office again. Like, I just don't want to go back. And I feel this way like a year and 20 days in. So how the fuck am I going to feel 5 years in or 10 years in or 15 years in? And here's the plot twist. 15 years isn't halfway to the end, right? There are a lot of people who will scrimp and save their PTO to try and take 6 days off every 6 months. I can't do this every 6 months. I can't have 6 days off. Because I honestly
furious last week when I was in the office. I was so upset to be there.
Because I was at home kicking back.
No, that wasn't the reason. I was just upset because that was the first week in a while I hadn't taken any PTO, like not even a day.
Yeah.
And I had July 4th off, but I had a bunch of stuff to do.
Yeah.
And it was really upsetting to have to go into the office on that Friday after the July 4th too. And I was like,
that's the thing. That's the thing. Is that when you work a 9 to 5, your time off isn't time off. It's catching up on all the shit that you had to do.
Yeah.
Right. So like my entire week has been spent running errands, returning things, going to get my permits together, doing my tax, like fucking doing my paperwork. I've got all this gun paperwork that I'm going to file away and digitize now. All the Camaro paperwork, the stuff for my girlfriend's car. I'm trying to get it all in my Google Drive and on a hard drive and whatever, and like digitize everything.
Yeah.
And now meal prep. There's just fucking it's just stuff. Like it didn't feel like a vacation. It wasn't a break, which is great because it means that I utilized my time well to be productive. But it sucks because I'm not excited to go back into the office. But honestly, I think you could give me a year off of work and I still wouldn't be excited to get back into the office.
Yeah, I don't think there's any situation where I'd be thrilled to go back.
Yeah, the fact that people will sit and tolerate that is just astounding to me. And I mean, I know that it doesn't bother them because they wouldn't do it otherwise, but I can't understand that method of thinking.
I think it does bother them, but I think it's masked by the fact that everyone around them is doing the same thing, so then they feel like they should be able to put up with it too. You know, it's the box of the norm. So they just sit in that box and kind of vibe with it and get through it. And even if they don't like it, there's so many people in this world that would argue, oh, well, you don't have to like your 9 to 5. It's about working for the weekend, or it's about working for a Friday night to go drinking with your friends. Like, there's so many people that argue that I feel like that's a consistent mentality through a lot of 9 to 5 people. And so they're just okay with hating their job.
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, several people who hate their job and jump from job to job and, you know, maybe find happiness somewhere, or maybe don't. And then there's people who love their job. But ultimately, I think at least 50% of people aren't completely satisfied with where they are, but they settle there because it's the norm to settle there, and it's easier to complain about it than it is to do something about it.
Yeah.
And another thing I hear too often is, oh, I don't want to, someone gets a new job and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to quit at least for 2 years because I want my resume to show that I'm committed to my position wherever I am. Right. And I'm like, so you're going to sacrifice 2 years at a place that you hate, that you don't love, and not do anything about it just because a piece of paper is going to say that you stayed there longer?
Right.
I'm like, whoa. Like, that's wild to me.
Yeah.
2 years of your life, like, that could be up 5% of your life. It could be 5%.
It can be more than that. Right. What if you die tomorrow?
Yeah.
Or not tomorrow, but like after the 2 years. What if you do your 2 years and then you die the next day? Right?
True.
Like, that could be, what's 2 years now? 10% for us?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't understand it. And if I were hiring someone and I'm like, oh, it shows here that you only had this job for a year. Why is that? If the person says, I wasn't happy there and I wanted to change, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, right. why is there negative?
I'd rather have that person than the person was like, oh, well, I just settled through it because, like, I didn't really care that much.
Yeah, exactly. Because then I'll hire you. I'll ask you how you're doing every day. And then you'll tell me, I don't fucking care what you say. I'm not going to believe you because you weren't happy at your last job and didn't say anything about it for 2 years. Mm-hmm. But I feel like one of the reasons that I feel so apprehensive to go in tomorrow is because the last 6 days on vacation, I've gotten a lot done and I made a lot of progress. But every day that I go into the office, I fucking hit pause on my life.
Chunk of time that's just wasted.
There's no progress being made. None at all.
I've been killing through podcasts, though, this past week. Like, I've been slaughtering through podcast content. But, yeah, I know that you can't.
Yeah.
But like, dude, like even after like 4 or 5 hours of podcast content,
Think of that.
I'm wiped. Like I am wiped from taking in information.
Right.
It is hard. And, I could sit there and take notes on it if I want to and take little breaks or whatever, or just listen to it in the background while I do something else. But it's just exhausting to be there, to just sit in complete silence and work on stuff that I'm not excited about outside of the podcast.
Yeah. People will say you're going to work even harder on your business than you do in your work. And I say, good. Yeah. I want to work harder because working harder means progress, but working harder at work just means you have less time to listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Like, it's painful.
100%. 100% agree. So I got another quote to drive us into the next part of this podcast.
Okay.
This comes from Justin Waller. I think I mentioned him last week too, maybe. Very interesting guy. He started off so he grew up moving from trailer park to trailer park. Just really rough childhood. He doesn't talk a ton about it, but you can tell that it wasn't the best.
Right.
And he grew up in an area that the best job you could get would be like manager for a construction site or manager for coal mining or manager for roofing, whatever. That was like the top of the top, would be like $150K. And now he's a multimillionaire, still growing. He's not uber wealthy, but I think in one of his podcasts, he said that he makes a few million a year in profit.
More than I make.
He's doing well. He's doing very well.
Right.
And he's still growing. He's still, trying to find places to expand his businesses and stuff like that. Or maybe he mentioned starting something new too, which I thought was kind of interesting. And it made me think about how he said that the business he's currently in, which is metal framing and roofing, was unscalable. And I thought that was really interesting because I was like, I wonder if he's listened to the Alex Hormozi Unscalable podcast.
He wouldn't have said it if he had.
Right. And so that's actually my third point. So that'll tie into this once we get into it. But very interesting guy. He's in the construction and metal roofing business. And he mentioned something that I really loved. And it's something that I've mentioned to myself for quite a while, but I'd never heard anyone else say it. So I had this like little bit of, is this the right mindset to have? Or like, is this, a weird divergence from what other people who have become successful see life as? And he said,
am I gay?
No, he did not say that. He's very straight.
Okay.
He said, it's not about money because the money is just a game to play. It's about who you grow into in the process of playing the game. And this is a paraphrase of a longer quote that I put together. And I thought that was an awesome point because I've always thought that, I love playing the game of business. I love trying to figure out how to make more money. I love trying to figure out the little spots where I can improve it and optimize it or cut down steps or, make the system better and whatever.
Right.
And there are obviously things that I want that cost a lot of money, and I'd love a stable financial life. But what I really love a lot is who I've been developing into as I go through this journey and how I've grown as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really love that quote from him, and it really stayed with me. And I was wondering what your take on it was. Is this pursuit of business and entrepreneurship and growing something that you see just for financial gain, or do you see it as a vehicle to help you develop as a person?
I think that I can't help but grow as a person no matter what I do in my life. I think one of the surefire ways to grow in the wrong direction is to stay stagnant, because you always grow, you always change, no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
If I stay in the same job that I have for the next 40 years, I'm going to change. I'll probably be more bitter. I'll probably be more egotistical. I'll probably be more territorial, right? Those are the traits that I see in people who have been in my company for a long time.
Yes.
I don't want those things, right? I want to be engaged in another life and, chase the carrot that's out there in the open ocean, right? And I think that the person who I am inevitably going to grow into is a far better person down that path than the one in the office. I don't know that that's something that drives me because it's inevitable. It's not something that I can change today. The business that I'm in, the way I'm going to spend my hours, how much money I make are items that I can take action today. I think that I'm going to become the person who I'm going to become no matter what. And I'm in no rush to get there. I mean, being on the SAE team was really awesome because you're the guy that people go to with things, right?
Yeah.
Like you're able to help people. And I look forward to that, but I know that that's not something that I can rush. I know that I can rush making money. I know that I can rush starting a business. I know that I can rush quitting my job. Like I can work my fucking ass off today to make it happen maybe tomorrow, right? Like I can go out there and like start searching for investors tonight. Maybe I strike gold and maybe tomorrow we can quit our jobs. Maybe, right?
Sure.
But I think that in rushing personal growth, it's not going to happen. It has to happen over time. I have to evolve. And I don't think that it's something that I can really control. I think that it's just going to happen the way it's going to happen. And I look forward to it, but it's not something that actively drives me every day.
Yeah, I think my question was less of what are you rushing to accomplish and more of what are you most excited about in this pursuit?
I think what I'm most excited about is the ability to help people and like make them smile.
Yeah.
I've always thought, man, it would be awesome. I had friends in high school who were into cars, right? And they are not on the path that we are on.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they will reach the heights that I hope we hit. And if that is how it ends up being, like they are making, $60,000, $70,000 a year when they're 40, but we have millions of dollars, like I can get them the car that they always wanted. Yeah. I can have them out to dinner and I can see them and spend time with them and I can make them happy and show them that. Or if there are people who are suffering financial hardship or a business that's struggling that I can step in and help with, or my high school rowing team.
Yeah.
I really look forward to helping people and I look forward to helping myself because that, like, I want for things. I want for a lot of things. There are a lot of things that I want, whether that be access to experiences or access to just like physical goods, right? So like I want a personal chef to cook my meals because I don't want to cook my meals anymore. I want money to buy a belt without having to wait for the 4th of July sale to buy one that's, 80% off. Right. And I want to go to the Monaco Formula One Grand Prix and watch from the podium. Like I want to do exclusive things that only exclusive people get to do and then share with that in the people in my life. I think that the person who I'm going to become is inevitable with that. And I think that on the daily, I can choose who I am. I can't change what I know. Like I can't suddenly know all of these life lessons that I'm bound to learn in my life today, but I can choose whether or not I'm addicted. And sometimes I choose to be addicted. Today I was addicted to people at Sam's Club that I bought groceries at because people are just fucking retarded and I hated it. I hated them. They drove me up the fucking wall. I was mean today and I wanted to be. And even on my way home, my girlfriend was like, that's mean. And I was like, I know they're being dumb and I'm upset about it. Yeah. And I'm in my car. I'm not saying anything to other people, but I was like, God, these fucking idiots. But, that is a choice that I made.
Yeah. Right. I think I relate to that quite a bit. There's a lot of things that I really want to give back to other people, you know, like
your brother.
Yeah. I'd love to give back to my family. And, there's other people outside my family like Alex at Autobahn who has always dreamed about like owning an E39 M5.
Right.
And it would be so cool to like roll up in the vision that I've played out in my head. It's I roll up to Autobahn in my E39 M5 and, obviously there's an issue with it because they're always broken. But, I roll up with my E39 M5 and he's checking out the car and he's like, man, this is so cool. And I'm like, yeah, I actually ended up buying two because when I have one serviced, I wanted to be able to drive the other. And he was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. Like, that's so sick. I'm like, yeah, and we're talking and blah, 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 blah. And then as we're chatting about my E39 M5, the other one rolls up on a flatbed and gets delivered. And Alex is like, oh, well, like, why are you dropping this car off? And then I hand him the keys and the title and it's his, right? And so, like, I have these, like, little visions of, like, what I want to do for other people in my life and stuff like that. And I really aspire to meet those goals and dreams.
Dude, you could go and have him fix it. And then when you come back to pick it up, have him take you on a test ride and be like, no, I want you to drive it. Like, enjoy. Like, you have it. You're like, whatever. And then at the end of the test drive, be like, are you happy with how your car drives?
Yeah.
And then give it to him then. But like, yeah, those are the types of things that I think about. It's like how high school guys play out those same scenarios with girls they like, like, oh, we're going to fall in love and get married or whatever. Like that whole dream. I have those dreams, but not about girls anymore, but about the way that we'll spend our money. I mean, Vision 79 is named after the dream that we have of driving hyper.
Right.
So I I can relate to that. But I think that I'm like in that story, like if you had the money and the material goods to do that today, you would do that today.
Yeah.
I don't think that you need to be a different person to do
No, but I look forward to seeing as I grow to grow into someone that I don't even know quite who they will be. You know, because I hear a lot of wealthy people talk about how much they change through their pursuit of wealth. And I'm really looking forward to what that gives me to.
I think I've also thought about that a lot, and I have a specific example to bring up because of that. But I think that a lot of people who start on their journey are initially motivated by selfish means, and then they grow into a more selfless person as they get there. And so they have a character arc, right?
Yeah.
But we have started our character arc very early. And that's proven because an employee at an establishment we recently visited asked us in the middle of a conversation, like, hey, I'm sorry to interrupt you guys. How old is you? And we were like, what? And she was like, how old are you guys? And we were like, 23. She was like, wow. And we were like, what? And she was like, the way you guys talk and act and work when you're here, like, I thought you were in your 30s. But, like, your Instagram profile popped up the other day, and I looked, and it looks like you graduated college, like, a year ago, and you guys do young people shit. So I was like, what the fuck is going on with these guys? And she was shocked to hear that we were as young as we are. And I think that we're very mature for our age, and we approach problems and personal goals very differently to people our age. So I think that where most entrepreneurs would look back on what they were when they were 23 and they're doing lines of coke off of hookers' assholes and other Wolf of Wall Street type shit, they'll go, man, I'm so much more mature now. I've grown through my business. But honestly, like, I think you and I can look back in 25 years on this podcast and go, yep, that's me.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, me too. Actually, another example that I wanted to bring up a couple minutes ago, but I forgot. I wrote a note next to the pen. Was we had a comment on one of our TikToks, and it was this lady who said, do you remember what it was?
She said, roughly, she said, another two white men talking with conviction about things they haven't done.
Exactly.
Essentially was her.
And my first gut reaction was to call her a cunt, because that's who I am as a person. That's who I've grown up becoming. Like, fuck you. I don't care. Eat shit. Right. But I didn't say that. Instead, I was coming up with something in my head along the lines of Hermosi's, like agree with them and then what up them and be like, dude, you don't know the half of it. I haven't even done the shit I say I've done on the podcast. And I read your comment, which was,
you hit the nail on the head. Number one comment.
Exactly. And I was like, that's the perfect fucking response, because it's my initial reaction was who I used to be. And then my thoughtful reaction was who I am and want to become. And then the reaction that had already happened via you was the settlement that I was about to get.
And I like that response. I thought about it for a little bit.
Dude, I thought it was great,
because it is true. I mean, we are talking about things we haven't done. And especially in that exact clip that she commented on, we're talking about a fake business that we've never started. And we're just playing a business game to go through ideas and failure points and stuff. And, you know, hopefully someone out there finds it useful. We at least have fun with it.
I find it useful. I think that sharpening the skill of coming up with business ideas, the fucking haircut thing that I talked about 15 minutes ago, like it's just constantly playing the game with yourself.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's bullshit. Sometimes, dude, was this the sex one? Is that the one that she commented on?
I'm actually not sure. I didn't even watch the clip to confirm.
Maybe it's impossible in the virtual reality world to come up with goggles and a fuck toy that sync up with one another. Maybe that's impossible, and I'm, naive. Who knows? But maybe it's not, and that's a potential business idea that I think is really fun and can pursue. I'm not going to know, and I'll never think about it if I never come up with those ideas.
Right.
And to this lady's defense, if I were scrolling through TikTok and I saw one of those clips, I would probably immediately think the same thing, because we're 23 years old and talking out of our ass.
Right.
But once you start to listen to our content and stuff, I think that it becomes apparent that we're not like serious about those games, right? They're games.
The other funny thing too about my response, if I take credit for it, is that I said number one comment, and that was the only comment on that video.
She's one of 7 views we got.
Yeah. So it's like the only person who commented. So it's the number one comment.
The TikTok views are so much lower than the Spotify listens that I checked on last. So higher, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like 1,500 people will watch a TikTok, and we get like 3 listens on Spotify, and you and I are 2 of them. So it's like, I'm almost certain that there's a chance that no one ever hears this podcast, and it's literally just you and I sitting talking to a room alone. But I always act as though I'm talking to a crowd of like 100,000, because I hope that one day we get there. And if I'm going to act this way in front of you, I want to act this way in front of 100,000 people.
And also, too, once we make it, people will go back and listen to these potentially.
Probably, yeah. And they'll hear me say retarded. And I want to stand by that, right? Because I fucking hate how fake people are when they're on camera versus not. Like a podcast, in my opinion, this podcast should be a window into who we are as people and how we grow.
It's very real. I mean, there's nothing that, we mask or anything like that outside of NDA disclosure things regarding business.
Yeah, but these are our real, raw, unadulterated thoughts. Yeah, I think that's really important. And that's one of the reasons I love the Joe Rogan podcast, is because it's real.
Yeah. And he doesn't even check comments. You know that. Joe Rogan doesn't look at any of the comments or feedback or anything like that.
Yeah. He doesn't have to. He has that following, but for engagement's sake, I think it's good.
Yeah.
But also, I like the idea of responding to the comments, so long as it's, positive, or in this case, like overly positive, where it shouldn't be, right?
Right.
I think that's fine. I think that if we ever got to the point where I'm commenting and actually calling her a cunt or something like that, at that point we should pause, but I digress.
Yeah. I didn't even look at her profile. For all we know, she could be doing the same thing. Talking about X topic.
But if that's the case, why isn't it like hey guys, great idea, let's collab,
Yeah.
I really want to, after our 1%, the 21st podcast, I'd love to have guests on and start to pick their brains about stuff every once in a while.
I'd enjoy that.
But my next comment, I'll move on because I've got 4 more things and we're burning through time. It's a quote from myself, and I forget why I wrote this down. Someone at work said something on Monday, and this sparked my thought. It was someone who didn't want to ask a question at work. And I said, would you rather raise your hand to ask a question and look stupid, or would you sit quietly and be stupid? Yeah. And it's a fucking damn shame that so many people choose to sit silently and not say anything and remain negligent.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a common trend amongst people who are unhappy with their lives and would rather drop mean comments on our TikTok videos than actually go out there and try and do something about it. Because it's easier to stay quiet and not know than it is to ask and risk judgment from others.
Right. I actually have a plug regarding that same topic.
Sure.
I drove Sammy over to the Melbourne flight school a few days ago. She had to pick up some like special types of rulers for reading maps and stuff like that for her. She's getting a private pilot's license. Mm-hmm. And the guy at the desk checking her out was like, oh, well, like, you might need this and this for blah, blah, blah. And she was like, oh, like, I didn't know that. Like, where can I find that? Or she was asking him a question about some topic regarding the private pilot's license. And he was very condescending, like super condescending.
Well, she is a woman.
She's just started, and she's competent, and obviously has some questions. And I was just really proud of the fact that she was able to go into that situation with a guy who knows a lot more than she does, and just ask questions, and regardless of his reaction, was just able to try to get more knowledgeable and look stupid rather than just being stupid. And so I thought that was a really good recent example of that in action. And I try to apply that same principle to my life too, in terms of asking questions at work or with business stuff or whatever.
That's fantastic. What I take away from that isn't the asking questions, because I have that down, right?
Yeah.
But when I ask questions, if someone responds condescendingly, I point that shit out right away.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, how would I have known this? This is my first, like, I wouldn't be asking the question if I were supposed to know it. Because if I were supposed to know it, I would know it. How about you just answer the question and be polite? It's free to be polite, right?
100%.
That's something that I might never master, because I fucking do not tolerate rude people.
Yeah, it is frustrating.
If you're gonna be rude, you're gonna be met with rudeness, right? Which is why I wanted to call that dumb bitch a cunt on TikTok. But that's maybe an area that I grow. Maybe in 20 years I look back and I'm like, man, I was really hot-headed, right? But I know that I'm growing because I was so much more aggressive like 5 years. I mean, you remember the SAE stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like our professors started saying, we were mechanical engineers, and our professor started saying, yeah, The aerospace engineering kids are very polite and they're very quiet. And when we have problems, they just take notes. But the mechanical engineering students really fight back on a lot of stuff. Like they're not afraid to speak their minds. And that was almost entirely our team and specifically me, because I would speak out against that shit so often. Maybe even when it wasn't necessary, but it was like everything was met with aggression. Everything that was questioning us was met with aggression.
Yeah.
And it was only when people were like insufferable. Like, for example, the kids on our team, like I would ask them to complete a task and they would say they don't know how to do it. And so I would nurture them and say, well, here are some resources for you to go learn. Please go learn and do. They would do it without having done the learning. And that's when I would get upset because you should have known it. I gave you the resources to learn it and you still did it wrong.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I don't know you and how far along your flight program you are. You're brand new and you don't know anything. Like, I'll give you the opportunity to learn first. But if I give you that opportunity and then you smite me with it, then I'll fucking call you a dipshit. You know?
Right.
Even if you're a college professor, but that guy turned out to be crazy anyways. So my next quote is another Hormozi quote, and it kind of has to do with my would you rather ask a question and look stupid or not and be stupid quote. I really love this one because Alex Hormozi doesn't have kids yet, but I think that he's already prepared for when he does. This quote is, generational wealth is transferred through education, not assets. And I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of people, like common people, hate rich people. And it's because many rich people were born into it, aren't deserving of it, and totally fuck it up. And that's because their parents didn't teach them. They just handed them, the assets and said, hey, figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think that what's actually truly important in handing wealth down to future generations is teaching them how to work.
Do you know why Alex Hormozi, or one of the reasons why he doesn't have kids yet or is afraid of having kids?
I would assume it's because he's still building a business.
That's probably partially it, but I heard him on a podcast. He said that he's scared that he would end up hating his kid.
Why?
I guess because he thinks that, like, if they don't work hard enough or they don't have drive or they don't have, aspirations and they're just kind of like a lazy bum, that he hates that kind of person. So he would end up hating his kid, and he's scared of that thought.
I can totally understand that.
So he doesn't want to have kids, or at least that's one of the driving factors for why he doesn't have kids yet.
That's interesting because he's totally right. Like I believe in nature versus nurture being balanced between the two. So you can nurture your kid and teach them like all the values that you have and give them the work ethic that they can have. But like ultimately, if they're just a lazy person, they're just a lazy person.
Yeah.
Right? I genuinely feel that had I not rode in high school, I would be a dramatically different person today, very lazy, and I don't think I would have my college degree.
I think it'd be very different. I didn't race because I spent a whole year outdoor karting in a single speed kart. I didn't win a single race. The highest finish I got was 4th.
Right.
And like, I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing because I loved it and that was my dream. And so I totally hear that. I think that athletics and sports really bring a lot of value to one's life.
Yeah.
And I don't think I really saw that until later on. Like, I didn't see it while I was racing, but now reflecting back on it, I can see how it's developed me as a person. I'm really appreciative of it.
I think that by nature, like uninfluenced by variables, I'm a lazy person. I think I'm the person who lays in bed all day and watches TV and does fuck all.
I think anyone could be that, though. I think I could have been that, too, if I grew up in a very wealthy family and I had everything handed to me and I was just chilling and vibing. Like, no, I could have ended up like that, too.
I think that's me right now. I think that's who I am as a person.
Yeah.
But I just I choose every day to not do that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think if you told me right now, like, hey, everything that you've been working for is gone and you don't have a job, like let's say like, oh, you have cancer and you're going to die in 5 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have the choice, which is don't tell anyone and keep living my life the way that I've been living it. Work extra hard to try and get something done to support the people who I love after I die, or give up entirely. And if I give up entirely, and default to my nature, I think that I'm generally a lazy person, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would disagree, but I mean, you better, I guess. So,
well, I just think about how, like, where my comfort spaces are, or where they used to be, and generally speaking, it was like in bed and watching YouTube or TV or something. Like, between rowing practices, dude, there was this fucking terrible spell of rowing practices in my junior year of college. My schedule was literally this: wake up at 5 a.m., go row, come home, shower, eat, get in bed, wake up, go to practice, at this time on college campus, work out, go to class, go home, eat, shower, fall asleep, wake up, go to practice, go home, shower, eat, fall asleep, wake up, go to practice, go to class, go home, shower, eat, fall asleep. So every time I woke up, I was in a haze because I was never sleeping more than like 4 hours at a time.
Yeah.
I was in a haze of like, am I about to go to practice? Am I about to go to class? I don't know. Every time I woke up, I wanted to die. And
That's
every
how
time
SAE felt.
Yep. Every time I would fall asleep, like I would find my comfort moments in after I would shower, I would eat a huge meal and then go to bed to digest it and like relax for the next practice. And I would just fall asleep watching to YouTube videos of people playing video games. That was like my comfort space. Even to junior year of high school, that was like my comfort space.
I always had something that I was working on, like almost as long as I can remember. Like when I was 8, I got into remote control car racing.
Right.
And so I got this little remote control buggy that I would race with other people at the track. And after I got it, outside of just racing at the track, I decided to like put a little camera on it, like my phone camera. Or my mom got me a GoPro that Christmas too, so I ended up using the GoPro as well. But I would make little videos and then edit them like a story of my little RC car driving around. It was cute and funny for an 8-year-old.
I did that with Legos.
Yeah, but and I feel like I've always had something that I'm working on, and I've always liked working on something. And I feel like you've had that too, at least as long as I've known you, and as long or in reflection of the different stories that you've told me.
Yeah,
I feel like it.
You met me after I started hating myself, though. So I'm like a totally different person. And I told
no, I met you before that point, I think, because I met you in the spring before that whole fall.
There were two breakups that really impacted.
And I met you after the first one.
Yeah, so I was already different, but not like gone. And after the second one, I was totally broken. I'm a totally different person now than I was then.
Yeah, first time we hung out, actually, I left my Miata top down, and it poured rain. I came home from the cow bar after working on something or hanging out with someone, whatever I was doing. And I came home and I left the top down because I was like, oh, I'll just go upstairs and like do a couple things and I'll go back and put it up.
Did we go to
Denny's? I never did.
Did we go to Denny's?
Yeah, we went to Denny's and my Miata was soaked. The seats got poured in and sat in a wet Miata.
Yeah.
And went to Denny's and then put the suspension on.
Yeah.
And then we went out and tore around and like flicked the steering wheel back and forth. And, I scared you in the Miata, which is pretty funny.
Dude, it was awesome.
Yeah. That was a good time. That was fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, good memories.
Yeah. I don't remember if that was before or after the breakup, but like I told Grace, I freaked.
That was after the first one. Because that was
after the first one, but before the second.
Yeah, because that was in the spring of 22.
Yeah. That would have been,
Yeah, spring of 22. Yeah.
It would have. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I told Grace when I first met her, I was like, hey, just so you know, I'm unhinged right now. Like, I'm not the person who I know I am deep down. I just have to work my way back to there. And she was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, are you a fucking serial killer? And I was like, no, I just can't feel emotion at the moment. I'm trying to build back to that. She was like, what the fuck do you mean? The way I would phrase it was, if feeling 0 is neutral, like I don't feel anything right now, and a positive 10 is elation, and a negative 10 is depression, I never feel more than like a 2 in either direction. Mm-hmm. And she was like, what the fuck does that mean? And she had no idea. But I'm a totally different person now than I was then. And I think that one of the things that changed was like, what am I doing? What am I progressing towards? What am I working on? And I think that if I took all that progression, like if you didn't give me the ability to progress, great example. If I went to prison, if I were in prison for anything, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know that I would become super jacked and, like a mob boss in the prison or anything like that. I think there's a great chance that I just fall into a depression and I lay there all day and I don't do anything. I don't know. I won't know.
I've thought about what I would do if I went to prison.
I think I'd kill myself before I go.
I think I'm I don't have too much of a bitch right now. I think I'm fucked up.
God. Jesus Christ.
I think I'd have to hit the gym.
Oh my God. Let's just try to not go to prison, please.
I'll come out a changed man.
Less of a man.
What's my man?
Okay, I have another one, and then we'll do yours, and then my last one. Ramosi says, it's arrogant to think you can do multiple things at once and beat someone who does one thing with all their effort.
Mm-hmm.
Pick one thing, go all in. Then you become the one who's hard to beat. And I like that for the same reason that I love Max Verstappen as a racing driver. What does Max Verstappen do?
He just races all the time.
It's all he does.
Yeah.
All he does. And we're doing some podcast prep for the TikTok shorts. And one of the questions is something about work-life balance. And, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's something that I appreciate about Max Verstappen because in the back of my mind, he has no personal life. He has no wife and kids. He has no girlfriend. He has no family.
He does have a girlfriend.
He just goes home to his cave and just races.
Yeah. I think he does have a girlfriend, though, but I can't imagine that it's very
It is in my head.
Oh, got it. Oh,
he does. He does have those things. But in my head, he's sadistic. Oh, my God, dude. We got to talk about fucking... let me make a note. What he does is he goes through and... he just races. That's all he does. Yeah. That's what he's known for. That's all he does. And that's why he's unbeatable is because it's all he does. He gives his everything to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Charles Leclerc makes music. Lando does finger painting, whatever, right? Max races. And I like to have a personal life, right? I don't want to work 24 hours a day and not have any friends or family outside of that because if I were to die tomorrow, I wouldn't be happy with that.
Yeah.
If I died tomorrow, I would be happy because I got to spend my morning watching the race with Grace. I got to do a little bit of meal prep and work on my own in the afternoon, and I got to hang out with you in the evening, and then I'll go home and, do more work. That's a good balanced day for me. I like that. If I worked 24 hours today and died tomorrow, I'd be upset. If I only hung out with friends today and died tomorrow, I'd be upset. But there's something to appreciate about people who pick one thing and give 100% to it.
I hear that. One thing that I've thought about recently is that topic exactly because I have a hard time sitting on projects or things I want to do that are unfinished or unattended to. Mm-hmm. And I have to really force myself to just focus on the one thing, just focus on the thing at hand and the task at hand and not diverge from that.
Yeah.
It's like I have the Porsche sitting in the garage and in my head, I'm like, oh man, it'd be so nice to like do little TikTok shorts with it and like blah, blah, blah. And like a part of me is like, okay, like that would probably be the 2-hour commitment a week to just throw a couple podcasts or short TikTok shorts on there. And like, that could be fun. And a part of me is like, that could be a good break, and a good little relief to do that. And that would be nice. And then the other part of me is like, if I have that time, I should focus it on the tasks at hand and the things that I have to do and should be progressing to. And I haven't found an answer to that yet outside of, I think the first thing I really want to get down is continuing to improve my time management because I feel like there's certain aspects of my day that I waste. Like I have such a hard time getting myself to go to work and get there at 8 a.m. Like I always show up at like 9 or 9:30.
Mine's when I go to sleep.
That sucks because I'm getting enough sleep, but I just don't have the motivation to get myself out of bed in the morning. But I know if I did, I could save an hour on the back end of my day.
Right.
And so I have something that I want to implement today. I'm going to like I tried this a while back and I couldn't figure out how to do it, but I'm going to figure out how to make a custom.
You're going to start paying me when you don't go to work on time?
No, I'm going to make a custom ringtone that gets me out of bed. And I think that will help.
Dude, I've got one. Have you heard it? His name is Mark Rublet or something. And it's his song is "Get the fuck out of bed, bitch, go."
Oh, yeah.
Dude, it's so fun.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just going to be
me.
Wake up, cocksuckers.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's you.
Yeah, it's just going to be me yelling at myself to get out of bed and do shit.
If you put Joey Diaz singing to the national anthem, "Wake up, cocksuckers, it's all over." If that's what woke me up every day, I'd be so amped. I struggle getting out of bed in the morning to get to work, but it's because I stay up late at night before going to sleep.
I do too, but I know I can function fine on like 6 or 7 hours of sleep, but there are times when I'll get 8 or 8.5 or something like that just because I don't want to get up to go to work.
Right.
And it's like, that's an hour I know I could save.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something I've been thinking about quite a lot lately.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to get to sleep earlier because I don't want to keep taking melatonin to knock myself out. It's easy. Like I'll take melatonin as I get in the shower and I'll be asleep 30 minutes later.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to rely on melatonin and I want it to fall asleep myself. But,
I've always been lucky with that. I can just fall asleep anywhere.
I think if I tried, I probably could. Generally speaking, if I can't fall asleep within 10 minutes of laying down, I feel like I haven't done enough that day. Like I'm not tired enough. But sometimes I don't make time for the gym, or sometimes there's just stuff that I want to do and I stay up, even if it's little things like reorganizing shit or like the death scroll on TikTok or YouTube or something.
Yeah.
Or like I'll watch a YouTube video and be like, okay, I'll unwind to this while I fall asleep, and then I'll eventually shut the iPad and go to sleep. But I end up finishing that video and I'm like, oh, I'll watch another one while I fall asleep because I'm not tired yet.
Yeah, I've done that.
Like I just want, because I know that I'm wired to stay awake until 3 a.m. I'm supposed to, and I can work those hours and then fall asleep. But it just doesn't work when you have to get up for work in the morning. It sucks. So like tonight, Grace is closing. I'll be with her. I'm there every night that she closes on her own, and I'll work until 2:30, 3, and then we'll go home, shower, whatever. And then I'll be asleep at 5 and then up at 9.
Yeah.
Whatever. What's your last quote? Or notes, whatever you got.
Yeah, my last one is regarding Alex Hormozi's Unscalable Product podcast.
Okay.
And many people talk about how their different methodologies or approaches might not be scalable for their business. And one example that he mentioned in his podcast, probably the main example, was handwritten cards.
Yeah.
It was a gym owner who would handwrite thank you cards to each person who went through some certain training course or whatever, and he'd mail those to those people. And it was like a really nice gesture,
right.
Something handwritten by the owner of the business.
Right.
And a lot of people would look at that and go, oh, well, like that's not scalable. I can't do that long term, so I'm not going to bother doing it in the start. And I thought that was a really interesting point because he was able to scale those cards from writing them all by himself to just signing them. Or, he didn't mention this, but potentially I thought of a way you could scale would be to have the trainers who are training them write the card, and then the owner could sign it, plus the trainer could sign it.
Yeah.
So there are ways to scale that and continue having it throughout your business growth and development. And I think it's harsh to just wipe it off immediately as soon as you start, just because you don't see a future for that style of promotion or management or whatever.
Right.
And so the core of this podcast was essentially that it's not unscalable, it's that it's unskillable for you, right? So it's not that you can't scale this handwritten card thing. It's that you don't have the skill to scale it effectively. And so I wanted to ask you, what's one time when you realized that it was a lack of skill holding you back and not an inherent factor of the problem or situation you're in?
I don't know that I have any off the top of my head. Something that I found interesting about that podcast was the idea that, if I can't write a handwritten letter to 5 million people a day, I just won't do it. Because if the handwritten letter is important to you and you think it's going to get more clients or increase client satisfaction, just do that until you can't manage it anymore. Because to me personally, if I bought a product and I was given a thank you letter with like an automated printed copy of the owner's signature, I don't care. It's just a copy. Who gives a fuck, right?
Right.
But let's say that that's one extreme, like a printed signature, and the other extreme is a handwritten copy, right? Do the handwritten copy so you can't keep up with it anymore, right? And then find a different way to get clients.
Right.
That's kind of my thinking on it. Interestingly, right? There is a person who does sign every single product that he sells. And he doesn't have the problem with scalability, and he makes more money than whatever fucking guy in your thing, right? Mm-hmm. That's Horatio Pagani.
Oh, yeah.
Because his products are like $5 million. He hand signs every single one of them, and he makes more money than the handwritten card guy because he sells higher value product for more money.
Yeah,
sells to the rich
at lower volume
and lower volume, right? So he can give the effort, and that's the thing. If you're a small scale business that wants to reach a lot of people, you can write handwritten letters to try and increase your customer base. Or if you're a large scale business that works with the premium people, I guess Pagani's larger than a small business, right?
Sure.
Let's just call it a large business because it's a multi-million-dollar corporation, right? They work with like the elite, and hand signing it also adds value. There's just a lot more weight to his signature. That was an interesting connection that I just made there. Thinking about scalability, the industry that we're in right now, I've thought a lot about scalability with the new one.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really thought, not is it scalable, but do I want to scale it? Because I'm trying to think end goal, like, is this the business to get me to the $1 billion mark? But is this the business that I want to take to the $1 billion mark? One of Hormozi's things is you can take any business to $1 billion, right? Over $1 billion is done in roofing every year. So make a roofing company that does $1 billion. Like, nothing's stopping you. You can do it.
Right.
And that's neat. I support that. Is this the business that I want to do it with? And I think no, because it's not in the spirit of the business to do that. I would rather find something else to do it in. Although I do love this, and this could easily get us to the multi-million-dollar mark, if not the billion. And if we have a multi-million-dollar mark, then that allows us the opportunity to work towards a different business that does take us there, should we decide to.
Yeah, I think there are ways to also scale the business to the $1 billion mark without having to be involved with each aspect of its growth,
right.
You know? And so there's room for development there and thought, and there's room for development.
Yeah. I think that my issue with it reaching the $1 billion mark is the same as why I feel a printed signature is not valuable.
Yeah.
Which is it's not genuine.
Yeah.
And I feel that in this business, genuine and authenticity is really important. And if you do scale to that size, inherently there's going to be less authenticity unless you get clever with it.
Well, that's a factor of unskillable. Like that could be a factor of we don't have the skill yet to figure out how to make it authentic and at scale.
Right.
So that could be an example for the both of us that like maybe we just don't have the skill set yet to figure out how to make it authentic at a large scale.
Right. And so then I start to think about it and I'm like, how would I make it authentic at a large scale? And then I think to myself, is this really like what I want to do? Like, is that what I want to be working on, is how to figure out how to make this authentic at scale? I kind of feel like there's something else out there for me that clicks a little better. I don't know what it is, but I haven't really thought about it much because we're not at that point.
One step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear that.
But what about you?
I think this is kind of a weird example, but in racing, the idea of, and this is something that I actually failed at. I got to a point in racing where I could no longer afford it. Like I couldn't do it anymore. Right. And at that time, the perspective was I can't continue to scale my racing career because there isn't money there to scale it. Like that, like I can't continue to practice every week. Right. And in reality, I think that the true answer was I didn't have the skill set to figure out how to generate money in order to continue doing this. Right. So that's kind of an odd example of this idea. But looking back on it, I can see myself, if I was back in my shoes with the knowledge I have today, I think I would have figured out a way to make money so that I could continue to scale my racing career. Because I think at that time, I didn't recognize the fact that I had a lack of skill to figure out how to make money. I thought it was just impossible to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, granted, it's tough for like 12, 15-year-olds to do that. I mean, I feel like with most racers growing up, the 12 and 15-year-olds aren't the ones who are like reaching out to potential sponsors and doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, which is something I was doing with failure.
But I feel that they have support teams and structures to do that for them because they're kids.
There's a lot of, there's so many people who I raced with who they were 6 and they had like 6 different sponsors and they had a whole team with them and
they were still slow.
$100,000 campaigns behind them.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And, you know, looking at that and looking where I was like, oh, well, it's just not scalable because like my racing career isn't scalable because I don't have these resources. But in reality, I just didn't have the skill set to be able to figure out how to get those resources.
But don't you think that if you had the money, you could build a fast racing team based off only picking the talented drivers, not the ones with the most sponsors?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I feel like this is how every racing team fails. But I feel like if you get started with it, like with the eye, like if a racer is running the team, they can pick out the talent and like fucking sift through all the bullshit. Because there are a lot of people with talent who get passed up because of the sponsors that come with it, right?
Yeah.
The reason that you couldn't make it any further, you didn't have any sponsors,
Right.
But what if you could find the kids that were fast and then nurture them?
Yeah.
Bring it to the top. 100%. That's something else that is one of my like visions, like one of the dreams is having a racing team.
I hear that and agree.
I think that would be great.
Very cool.
My last quote also has to do with racing.
Mm-hmm.
It's from Max Verstappen. Last weekend at the Austrian Grand Prix, Max and Lando Norris were fighting at the front, and there was a couple passes made and a lot of really aggressive defending from both. And eventually, Lando and Max are coming into a corner. Max squeezed Lando to the outside. Lando could have gone. He could have put his left wheels over the line and still made it around the corner, but he decided not to. He's entitled to it. Max didn't leave him the space. They came together and crashed, right?
Gotcha.
And after the race, everyone was outraged because Max was defending too aggressively. Although there are many instances in which the same maneuver was taken and the attacking driver just moved over a little bit, right? Despite that, Lando wasn't entitled to, and so they came together, right? Racing incident deemed Max's fault. And so people were questioning him about it because everyone was upset with Max because maybe it's Lando's second win, right? And so one of the interviewers said, Max, you could have let him by. I mean, you are leading the championship. And he said, I could also stay home. I'm here to win, not to finish second. When you're fighting for the win, why can't you fight in a hard way?
Yeah.
And that's such a fucking great example of why he is as elite as he is, because he's not there. It's the same thing that Senna and Schumacher had, which is like, I'm not going to just let you by. Like, you have to earn it, and I'll defend no matter what. Even they both got flat tires. They both had flat rear tires. Interestingly, their rears collided.
Yes.
And even after they had their flats, Lando's went slower than Max, so he had more pace. Max still wouldn't let him by, only on 3 tires. He still closed him off and took the racing line. And so it's like, even in his like dying breaths of the race, he still was defending that position. And that's something that I really, really am inspired by. It's take it to the limit and then some. Like, do everything that you can, because I'm not here to finish second.
Yeah. I love that mentality.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, good podcast this week.
That's all I've got.
Very nice. Thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy your week and be well.